Hello everyone, this is Cate and welcome to what I call an hour of miracles, which is miracles are shifts of perception from fear to love, and from that shift comes a new way of being. So it's a activity, and the miracle from that shift is that your mind joins with God's mind, because you're shifting from fear-based thinking to love-based thinking. And first of all, I'd like to thank everybody at awakeningtogether.org for inviting me to speak for an hour once a week. And I feel very honoured and blessed and loved. And I bless and I love and I honour you. If you're listening to this, this is my message to you. We are all one, not in bodies, but in the mind of love. And we all have that mind. And today I'm was guided to talk about a couple of different practical things that we can do on our journey. And a couple of things I'm going to be talking about some of the hardest things on this journey. And a few times when I've talked about these in Course in Miracles groups, and I've done some videos on them myself, I've had people come up to me and say, I just can't do that, Cate. And that's fine, because nothing's ever going wrong. But it always points back to the lesson, I want the peace of God. And how much do I want the peace of God? Do I desire the peace of God above everything else? And then it comes down to, well, I guess the people that said to me they couldn't do it was they didn't have that willingness at that particular time to practice it. And I guess, you know, Jesus says he'll wait for us. He just waits for us to choose again. See, all these lovely teachings sort of all blend into one teaching. They all go together. So, so for me to want the peace of God, or to have the peace of God, I've got to want it. So the lesson, I want the peace of God, is one of the most important lessons in A Course in Miracles in terms of desire. And when we get that in our hearts, when we truly, truly desire the peace of God only, and above all else, we desire the peace of God, that's when things start to shift. And your mind will definitely start to change. You will start experiencing many different things, and each mind has its own little journey, has its own particular individual way that it awakens. That's why we can't compare. And one of the things I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, but the first thing is what the Course, the practice of what the Christ mind has talked about in A Course in Miracles. Seeing the face of Christ. Now, all through the Course in Miracles, the Christ mind is pointing us to seeing our brother as innocent, seeing our brother as sinless, overlooking what the egoic mind is telling us about what that character is appearing as. And as the lesson is we see only the past. So we have to come to see that we can't actually see our brother as he truly is, because he's telling us we're only seeing our past. And that's why we need a helper to help us see something other than the past. And we are completely unaware that we're seeing only our past. We think we're actually perceiving clearly. And when we come to a spiritual path, we turn to some sort of spiritual path. It's generally from a place of mind where I want a better way. What I've been doing hasn't been working. So we turn to a spiritual path, and it doesn't matter which one it is. It'll have maybe a different particular way to get different words in different language, but it will generally bring you back to the same place, which is your mind being cleared or losing its egoic sense of self. It's referencing back to a self that has these problems. So seeing the face of Christ is a particular practice, and I'll be talking about another practice as well if I get time this morning. So I never know what's going to come out. So I'm just going to allow truth, Holy Spirit, whatever, to speak through me, to use what I've realised, what I've experienced, to share through the language of A Course in Miracles. And on my journey with the Course, undoing my ego, which is removing the blocks to love. Now, removing the blocks to love is just undoing the ego. First of all, we have to understand exactly what the ego is. And it's the Course in Miracles is written in the ego, how can I say it? It's written for the ego. It's written about the ego. It's written where you are in your egoic mind. So it's gently, he's gently telling us what the ego is so we can become aware of it. Because how can we undo something we're not even aware of? And then he's also, there's two things about the Course in Miracles. It's helping you see, understand what your egoic mind is and what that egoic mind does and how it's resistant to change, and it's going to fight to keep its thought system in place in your mind. And the second thing it does is it brings in the truth about who you are, and that you can actually think, have a thought system or a mind of God, and you can, and God gets completely changed as to how you think about what God is. By the time you've come to see what God actually is, and God is just this beautiful, peaceful, eternal mind of love, and it's got no opposite. And you have got that in your mind right now. That's out of awareness though. So it's like something's in another room. The eternal oneness, the beautiful, peaceful holiness that you are, and that everyone is, and that this world is, and everything, this holiness, this love, this perfect love, is in your awareness right now. You don't need to go anywhere. It's not something that you have to try to get. It's already there. And what we're doing is we're removing the blocks. So it's like there's a brick wall, or there's clouds in the sky, but the sky is our eternal changeless mind, and it doesn't matter how much it rains in the sky. It doesn't matter how many birds fly across it. It doesn't matter how many fireworks are set off in the sky. The sky is eternal and changeless and always there, and it never goes away. You look up at the sky now, it's just there, and that's the awareness of oneness. It's just there. It's so there, so simple. But we have to see what are the blocks. So we can't get from our egoic thinking mind to this awareness of perfect oneness in one easy step. It does take time, it takes effort, and it takes great willingness. He says a little willingness to start with. Thank you. Now I'm the same. I'm the same as you. It takes great willingness to practice these steps. So one of the things that I had on my journey was I've talked many times about this, but it was very significant in my journey, a bully at work. And I'd actually practiced seeing the Christ in my daughter, and that was my first miracle. And that seemed easier than seeing it in the bully at work. So anyway, our mind will create hierarchy of illusions, and so we're being mind trained back to God's mind of love. Now, seeing the face of Christ, I'm going to be reading from a section of A Course in Miracles called Clarification of Terms, number 3, and it's called Forgiveness, the Face of Christ. So I'll be reading a little bit from there, but I'll also probably just mainly share about what the Holy Spirit directed me in my mind. So on my journey, I joined very deeply with the Holy Spirit, and I felt that he was directing me. It was like a very clear message and very clear directions of where I was to go and what I was to do. And I had completely surrendered to not knowing how to get to the peace of God. So I completely gave myself. That doesn't mean that it was easy, because the ego and in my mind had great resistance to what the Holy Spirit was asking me to do many times, and I didn't always succeed. But you know, the most important thing is being willing and just to choose again, and that's all we're asked to do. Is just keep choosing for the Holy Spirit's way, and not beating ourselves up when we don't do that, when we do choose the ego, and you know, we do judge someone in our minds, or we get upset or angry. We just quickly just get over it, just move on, just say, okay, well, that happened, so I'm going to start again. Okay, wipe it clean. Someone's laughing at me. Wipe the slate clean and choose again. So now, seeing the face of Christ is a practice. And when I was practicing this, the Holy Spirit was asking me to see this woman at my work, what I would deem as a bully. She's probably what my mind saw as one of the biggest bullies. And I was finding bullies when I was going from job to job. And this one seemed to be worse. So the ego was ramping it up. Now, I want to say, just before I talk about the practice, is that we have to remember that we are causing the bully, or that I am causing the bully. Now, this teaching that I am causing it has to be really understood in a way as well, because it's not to say that I want someone to be mean to me consciously. I'm not consciously. What happens is we want people to love us. We want everyone to be loving to us. That's our desire. But the problem is with that desire, and it sounds very simple, I want everyone to be nice to me. So, going to work, you would think, I want people to be nice to me today. But that's simple, and it seems normal enough to think that. But that means, and most people would say that that would be oh, yes, I would like people to be nice to me at work as well. But that's actually a desire for people to be nice to me. And I have to let that go. If I desire for people to be nice to me, I'm not desiring the peace of God. And this is how subtle the ego is. And most people would just think, well, that sounds crazy. Why would you not desire? Wanting, ain't it? Yeah. So you have to even go beyond wanting anything outside of you to be a certain way, because if everyone was Christ, pure, innocent and guiltless, why would I desire them to be different? See, this is how the very subtlest of egoic mind works. Now, when you step on this path, this is what's going to be getting undone. So I'm desiring for someone to be nice to me, and I have to give that up. I have to say, I have no desires except for the peace of God. So I go to work, and so what the Holy Spirit led me to see was he asked me, he, she, it, whatever, the voice in my mind, the voice for love, I asked, I want to undo what I am projecting. Now, this projection of a bully comes from deep within my unconscious mind, and I'm not aware of it. This is how we have to be. We cannot see what's in our unconscious. And this is a really difficult thing, because we have to trust the Holy Spirit to help us see what's in our unconscious. So in that particular instance, I said to the Holy Spirit, I have got no idea how my unconscious mind is projecting a bully, but these are the teachings, and so I believe in them. And therefore, I want you to show me how my unconscious guilt and judgment is projecting somebody to be like this to me, because the teaching is that I am the cause. I'm causing this to happen to me, and I am giving it the meaning. And basically what it really ends up being is that this separate self that I think I am is keeping itself in place by me having a bully outside me. That's the final seeing. But when you're in it, when you're actually in and going to a job, and there seems to be somebody there that's giving you hell every day, you have to join with the Holy Spirit, because there's no way you can see that clearly, because you are, one, you are believing in a bully. Two, you believe you're a self that can be bullied. And three, you're scared, and the fear is telling you to leave. And so this is why, if we really want to undo our egoic mind, we have to face up to these, and we have to be in very, very uncomfortable situations. And we are going to be, we have to, this path to undoing our ego is going to push us into some very, very fearful states of mind. And it's very important to, for me, as far as I'm concerned, it's important to hear that the undoing is not it can be easy for some minds, but generally, he says, it causes a lot of fear and unsettling. And he talks about a lot of the periods of unsettling in the back of the book, in the Manual for Teachers. So, just trying to focus here. So, seeing the face of Christ is a practice, but it's not seeing anything with your eyes. So I had a beautiful relationship with Jesus in my mind. Now, if you have a relationship with something in your mind, whether it be Jesus, the Buddha, a tiny baby in your arms, something, if you close your eyes and you imagine that, it brings you to a state of complete innocence when you're looking at that particular symbol. It brings your mind to a place of absolute, you're looking at the innocence. So my innocence, the way I did this was I had this beautiful relationship with Jesus in my mind, and he was a figure, and I'd had many beautiful joinings with him where he'd healed me, but this particular way, the Holy Spirit, or it was the sort of the Holy Spirit at that stage, which I was working with both, and they sort of had different ways, but it was just what my mind had needed to do at that particular time. So the Holy Spirit had said to me, when you go to work, I want you to imagine that Jesus has come back for a day, and no one knows about it, but he's coming back as the bully. And then what happened was I closed my eyes, and I imagined Jesus appearing as her body for that day. And so if you can imagine, if you do have a love for Jesus and you have this, when you imagine him in your mind and you imagine him as this beautiful, radiant love, this love that's beyond anything in this world, and you feel your heart opening and you feel his innocence and his love radiating to you, if you can then move that. So this is the seeing, is not the, when we say see the face of Christ, and we're not talking about seeing something with our eyes, as in we're not putting Jesus's face over their face. The seeing is the feeling or the experience of Jesus, what Jesus means to you, or what innocence means to you. If you want to put the feeling of holding an innocent child, of, you know, when you see little 1-year-olds, just when they first start walking, they're running around and they're so innocent. I mean, we're all innocent, but this is just a mind training exercise. And as you're looking at that child and you feel this delight coming over you, and you just feel this, you might even say you adore them, and your delight, and you laugh, and you just get this feeling. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to feel into the experience of their innocence. So whatever it is for you, however, whatever, so choose whatever it is. And then when that particular symbol, which was the bully for me, when she appeared in my workplace, I started to look at her and think, this was my particular thing that the Holy Spirit was using for me. I had to experience that nobody else knew that Jesus was appearing that day as her. And how I changed towards her was amazing. I had like this deep honouring, this deep love. Now, this woman was her usual self. She came into the office and she criticised everyone as her usual way. She would be annoyed, irritated, upset, and she'd been in the company for a long time, so she was well established. Excuse me. And I had, so the forgiveness, and this is why this section is called Forgiveness, the Face of Christ, because this is the forgiveness. Forgiveness is still and judges not. So the judging not is the overlooking. So when she, that morning that I started to do this practice, everything that was coming out of her mouth was still the same from the day before. But what happened was I overlooked it. I was focusing on the true self and seeing the face of Christ. So not only overlooking it, but actually going further and seeing the pure essence of innocence. So it took me a while. I had to practice this a couple of months before I was able to really connect with the true. It became natural to connect to her innocence. And he gave me 3 things. He gave me that to do. He also gave me the washing of the feet with her. And he gave, as I walked past her office, I would say in my mind, I love you, I love you, I love you. She represented a projection of my mind that I wasn't even aware of. I had no idea the guilt and the judgment that was in my mind that was projecting onto this particular character in the dream. And until you can get to the stage where you are perceiving the character correctly, as they really are, as they truly are. The character is an aspect of Christ, is Christ, and that's all that's here. Every single thing is God, is the Christ essence, is the pure holiness, is eternal, changeless holiness, and I'm not talking about form. I'm talking about something beyond form. But you'll see it, but we have to get mind trained back. So I'm just going to read a little bit about this, and this is why it's so important, and it is a practice. Course in Miracles is not an intellectual understanding to be debated. If you want to start debating with another Course in Miracles person about what something means, just stop. The best thing you can do is say to yourself, I don't know anything, and just keep saying that. And you'll be, if you want to think you know something, I've met so many, not so many, I've met a few Course in Miracles people that just want to like debate what something means in the Course. And it's just another way of keeping you stuck. To come to the Course in Miracles, you really need to, one, be ready to practice this. I mean, he's asking us to repeat things all day. He's asking us to look around the room. It's a practical tool. It's going within. You need to do this. We're using time to get to timelessness. So forgiveness, the face of Christ. Forgiveness is for God and toward God, but not of him. The reason why it's not of him is God doesn't need forgiveness. We do. We need, and forgiveness is this practicing. God doesn't need to practice because God is eternal oneness. It is impossible to think of anything he created that could need forgiveness. So, in other words, when you're in your right mind, you would see that there's nothing to forgive, but we need to use this forgiveness because we're not in our right mind. Forgiveness then isn't an illusion, but because of its purpose, which is the Holy Spirit, it has one difference. Unlike all other illusions, it leads away from error and not towards it. Forgiveness might be called a kind of happy fiction, a way in which the unknowing can bridge the gap between their perception and the truth. They cannot go directly from perception to knowledge because they do not think it is their will to do so. This makes God appear to be an enemy instead of what he really is. And it is just this insane perception that makes them unwilling merely to rise up and return to him in peace. And so they need an illusion of help because they are helpless, a thought of peace because they are in conflict. God knows what his Son needs before he asks. He is not at all concerned with form, but having given the content, it is his will that it be understood. And the content is, the form is the bodies and the content is the love in your mind. So, and that suffices. The form adapts itself to need and content is unchanging and eternal as its creator. The face of Christ has to be seen before the memory of God can return. That's the sentence I wanted to read. I'll read it again. It's so beautiful and clear. The face of Christ has to be seen before the memory of God can return. So that's a clear teaching from the Christ mind, telling us that we need to practice this, seeing the innocence, seeing the guiltlessness, seeing the holiness, seeing the eternal, changeless spirit of every single thing here, especially the ones that we've projected our unconscious guilt onto, which we're completely unaware that we've done. So this is where this big trust comes in, where we have to trust. Okay. The reason is obvious. Seeing the face of Christ involves perception. So remember, perception's always in our mind. It's nowhere else. We know that actually our eyes are never seeing. We're perceiving something that's actually already done and dusted. It's already gone by. But our mind believes it's true. It's believing its thoughts about. So it's what's happening is we've got these egoic thoughts. They're creating images, and we're seeing the images. And that's what the dreaming and the sleep concepts come in, because that's what it's pointing to. That's why he says we're dreaming, because we're like got a little projector in our mind that's projecting out the images, and it's coming from our thought system. And that's why we're seeing the images of our thoughts, and we're unaware of how we're projecting that. That's out of our awareness. And so when it's out of, this is why it's so difficult to get back. It can be difficult because you have to have extreme amount of trust or willingness to work with the Holy Spirit to clear up your own projections. No one can look on knowledge, but the face of Christ is the greatest symbol of forgiveness. So this is, as we use this practice of seeing the Christ, and the Christ represents the innocence and the guiltlessness. This is a way to undo the egoic mind, because what the teaching is as I see without, it's within. So the without and the within are starting to join. We don't realise that we're actually joining the egoic. We're joined with the ego, but the way we're undoing it is we're seeing, when we see the innocence in someone that seems outside us, our mind confirms that to us. So this is an important step, is as I say to the bully, you are the perfect Christ, you are innocent, complete, you are holy. As I say those words, as I'm talking to her, as I'm looking at her, as I'm repeating that, as I'm saying, I love you, Jesus, because this is just a way. We're practicing this, getting to come to a state of perception about her, so we're changing our perception. And as we are doing this, what's happening at that same time is our mind is saying that to us. So everything that we're seeing outside ourselves, and if I say to someone, I've got a bully at work, my mind says, I am a bully at work. Every single thing we think and say, our mind confirms that is us. So you have to be really careful what you're saying. And when people say, I can't forgive myself, you don't need to. What you need to do is you need to forgive the symbols outside you. And as you do that, as you turn those symbols, that bully, as I turn her into her true self, the innocent Christ that she is, I now need to do that in my mind. I don't need to speak it out to her. She doesn't need to know anything. She doesn't need to know that I'm calling her Christ. I only need to be sitting quietly while she's saying what she's saying, and I need to overlook everything that she's saying, and I need to say, you are the innocent, beautiful, holy Son of God, Christ. And as I do that, my mind's confirming to me that's what I am, because that's what we all are, and this is the way it works. This is the healing of our mind. And we just let every other mind be as it is. We can't heal the fragmented other parts of the mind consciously. But as we do our work internally, it is healing, but we don't know how. We can't set out to consciously say, I'm going to heal someone's mind by saying this. What Jesus tells us is that as we heal our mind back to the oneness, back to the God, the mind of God, the Course talks about the mind of God, which is the mind of oneness, of pure innocence, a peace that passeth understanding. As we go back to that, we are healing all minds. We are not healed alone, but we don't know how this works. All we can see is that the other minds that are around us start to heal. You will start to see it as you don't purposely put it, you just see it as a result. It is a result of it. So welcome, B. Crawford's just joined in. Okay, so we're talking here about seeing the face of Christ, which is not seeing with our eyes. So we're not trying to put an image of Christ, of Jesus's face over the top of them. This practice is this embodying what the embodiment of Christ stood for. So if you can imagine, imagine Jesus coming back for a day and appearing to you. And the love that would radiate out of him, this gorgeous, beautiful love, and it's so pure and so holy and so gorgeous and so beautiful. And that's what we're trying to see. We're trying to embody that in the symbol that we've put as upsetting us. What we've projected, we're projecting something, and we're unconsciously projecting it. So this is why we have to really give up knowing how we're even going to heal our minds. We put our whole program to the teacher, and the right-minded teacher, and we say, hey, I've got this problem with my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. I've got this problem and I am upset with this person. They are upsetting me. And then we have to say, okay, they are not upsetting me. It's my projection, and I am unaware of what I'm projecting onto them. This is where you have to really go to say to yourself that you're completely unaware of what's in your mind, your unconscious guilt, and it's unconscious. So it's out of your awareness. But if you practice this, it's really beautiful. So he's saying that but the face of Christ is the great symbol of forgiveness. So this is the forgiving, and as we forgive, it undoes the egoic self. And then what happens is each time you use these practices, you're undoing the egoic mind in your mind, and then eventually the ego will just completely fall away from your mind. All the blocks will be removed. This is a block. So we're removing a block to the awareness of love. And as I said before, you have the awareness of love. You have this peace that passeth understanding. It is there now. You have it. You are completely awakened to this love. But it's out of your awareness. It's like something being in another room in your house, and you are unaware of it. And if I said to you now, is there someone in that room, and they were there, you will be unaware of it. That's what it's like with when you're unaware of this Christ mind, this perfect, peaceful mind that has no opposite. It is in your awareness right now, but you have the blocks. And all we have to do is be willing to say, okay, let's remove the blocks. But the face of Christ is the great symbol of forgiveness. It is salvation. It is the symbol of the real world. The real world is where you will see the real world when you've undone the blocks, because it rises and you will see that everything is holy. Everything is God. Everything is love. Your mind is completely healed, and so you're perceiving through holiness. And your holiness will bless this world. And it's just beautiful. Honestly, when you see what God sees and you join with God's mind, you'll just cry with delight. You'll just tears of joy will be coming out of you. Every person you speak to, I've met the bully. I met her about a year after I left the job, and I saw her and I just smiled at her as I was walking past, and she looked away. But my complete love for her as who she truly was, because I can't see anything else now. I couldn't find a bully if I tried. There's no way that anyone could be a bully. I went to a job and they said, be careful. One of the directors is a bully, and I just laughed. Because I thought there's no way the innocent Christ that I'm going to be interacting with could ever be a bully. And we just had the best relationship, this director and I, and everyone was astounded at how beautiful this relationship was with him. And I think he got some healing through the relationship with me. He said to me, oh, Cate, you're the only one I can really talk to here. And in my mind, I would just bless him and love him and honour him. And He was just gorgeous. Oh, gosh, he was a gorgeous man. But everyone else just perceived him as a bully, and maybe in that particular instance there was some things that his egos was saying, but, you know, to me, I just laugh at the ego. If I see somebody trying to be an ego, I laugh, because they're trying to be something they're not. And it's not something that I need to do anything about, because it's nothing. It's nothing. If somebody's expressing an ego, they're doing nothing. They're being nothing, doing nothing. It has no effect. The ego cannot affect anything, because how can God and Christ have anything affect it? And so I laugh. I just laugh. If someone's in their ego, it's laughable. I mean, I don't make fun of them or anything. It's a gentle laughter. It's just somebody, it's like a child trying to be something they're not, be Batman or something. You know, they're trying to, it's just something that's not, that doesn't do anything. This egoic mind has no effect on the love of God. It has no effect on anything here. There's only the Christ appearing in all his glory everywhere. And it's everywhere in everything. My hand, the lamp, my dog, my phone. Everything is God. Everything is love. It's all one. And whoever looks on this no longer sees the world. He is as near to heaven as possible outside the gate. Yet from this gate, it is no more than just the step inside. It is the final step, and this we leave to God. So what happens is, as we're practicing this forgiveness, and we have to do this is a practice, so we come to see the real world. And this final step is that whole self dropping away. And that's what God, it says we leave it to God, but actually that awakening, or, you know, there's many words for it, shifts, massive shifts of perception. This, you know, when you can work with the Holy Spirit, team up with either Holy Spirit, Jesus, or your guide, and you just constantly be willing to work with all your unconscious guilt that you're not aware of, and just say, okay, I don't know what this is. I think that this person's being mean to me. How do I see this differently? And that's why that lesson, above all else, I want to see this differently. So when a few people said to me, I can't do that practice of seeing this, it was actually one woman had a bully at work, pretty similar to what I had. She said, I can't do that, Cate. She is a bully. She is a bitch, la, 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 la. She went on, and I just said, nope, there's no bully. There's only the Holy Son of God, and you're perceiving her correctly. And she just said, oh, no, no. And she gave me some stories, and I just said to her, they're stories. You really need to go beyond it. And she struggled with it, and I saw her about 6 months later, and she said the same thing. She said, no, this woman's getting worse. And I just said, no, this is the egoic world that's been projected, and it will continue to be projected as we continue to believe in our projections and not go within and have them healed by the Holy Spirit. So it's hard. What do you want? Do you want the peace of God, or do you want to be right? Do you want to be right about this person that's holding your ego in place? Well, I'm happy to be wrong, and I think this is one of the things about coming to the surrender, not knowing, just this whole not knowing. And the actual awakened mind, it really doesn't know anything. It doesn't want to know anything. That's the ego wants to know, and it gets fearful if it doesn't know something. But, you know, to be in a peaceful, awakened mind, it really knows nothing. I guess you might say it knows only a couple of things, and that would be it knows truth. It knows what it's seeing. It knows when it's interacting, that it's interacting with itself, and that everything is it, and that everything is holy. And there's no referencing back to a particular self in the mind. There's no referencing back to a separate self that needs something, that has to get something, that is projecting. There's no, the referencing, the thoughts that reference back to a self stop. They cease. In that moment of awakening, the thoughts should cease. Now, if they do come back, that's fine, because I did have situations for me too that the ego claims even the awakening. So it claims everything. And that's why it's always good to have a spiritual teacher, if you can. Have somebody that you can have some one-on-ones with, so that as you're going through your journey, you have got somebody to say, okay, I had this type of realisation, and if they're a bit further along than you, they can confirm if the ego has subtly come in and started to say, I had this awakening, or I had a mystical experience, because the ego is the I that claims it. Because when you're having that mystical experience, that revelation, your mind will be out of the sense of an I. It will take you to a place where there's no referencing to an I, and you will just be in the eternal, changeless, stateless, timeless state of mind. And you'll get a glimpse, or you'll get weeks of it, or you'll get something. But what happens is generally the ego mind will claim it. And that's what happened to me, and I was very unaware. And if I did this journey again, I think I probably would have liked to have had a teacher, to somebody. But at that stage, I didn't know anybody that had awakened that was available to me. But I eventually did get recommended to a teacher, and I have a teacher now, because I love having someone. I probably talk to her once a month, once every 6 weeks, and just share. I need that. I want that. Because what happens is this awakened mind goes deeper. It is an ever deepening. So I'm continually recommitting in to deepening this love. This love is infinite. It's so holy and so pure and so white and so gorgeous and so boundless, this love of Christ. And it's endless and it's infinite, and it's so, our minds cannot fathom this love of God. It is beyond understanding. And as we deepen into it, and as more and more layers get moved away, what happens is there's just this very subtle conditioning still there. And that's all right. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Like, who cares about labels? Who cares whether somebody says you're awake or you're not awake, or you're enlightened or liberated? Like that, those things are so not important. What's important is the state of mind you live in. You live in your mind. You're the one that has thoughts, and you're the one, if you want to choose, you can get back, you can be awakened now. You can choose to look at the blocks, and you can undo those blocks. All you need to do is just put your hand up and say, hey, I sign on for this course. I sign on, and I'm going to do anything it takes, including seeing this terrible bully at work as the beautiful Christ that she is. And I'm going to be willing to be wrong about her, and I'm willing to be mind trained back to the Holy Spirit, the Christ mind, that voice to God. I'm willing to be mind trained, and let me sign up for that. Where do I sign? I'll sign on the dotted line. And once you put the Holy Spirit in charge of your life, your day, every moment, you just say, okay, I completely resign as my own teacher. And you will get some fear coming up. But you just have to say, okay, I mucked up today. I put you in charge again now. And you will, the willingness will get you there. You just have to be willing to get out of the way. You have to be willing to know nothing. You have to say, I know nothing, and I'm happy knowing nothing, because the Holy Spirit will bring me everything I need to know. So anyway, I've got to the end of the hour session, and I didn't talk about the other practice, but I might talk about that next week, depending on what's coming through. And the other practice is about the analogy is about walking into the forest with ropes. I'll give you the little teaser there. Anyway, today's talk was about forgiveness, the face of Christ. Forgiveness is seeing the truth of your brother. It is the way home. And when you are seeing clearly and perceiving clearly, your whole mind will shift. The self that you think you are will just, and what happens is there's no sacrifice in this. There's only, then the ego will fight you all the way and say, oh, what will happen if there's no me? What happens is you are still observing, you're experiencing the world, you're just experiencing it in a different way. So you're not going to have no sense of experience. It's just that the experience doesn't have commentary referencing back to a self. It doesn't say, the commentary that I noticed that all left was, it used to say, oh, that person should change, they should not speak that way, oh, why are they doing that way, they should be nicer, they shouldn't be talking about them. All that just leaves. And so what happens is you're present with just what's going on. In that moment, your mind is completely quiet and it's just in the moment. It can't help but be in the moment, because the past and future's left. So your mind's endlessly in what the Course calls the eternal always. It's the now, the holy instant. Anyway, I better leave. So now it's up. I bless you, I honour you, and I love you as your true Christ, beautiful, holy self. And I bless you with my holiness. And I love you. So thank you. And I'll turn the mic back on and I'll stop my recording. And thank you very much. And oops, I've got to finish this. Bless you, bless you, bless you.